Hi there, my name is Laura, and welcome to the Equestrian Skill Builders live broadcast where we discuss riding position topics and share ideas and exercises to help you and your riders. If you'd like to improve your riding and training, win more ribbons at your next horse show, and who doesn't like to do that, or generally like other horsey related stuff, then stay tuned because I think the exercises we're going to share with you today very well might change your riding forever in a good way. Guest hosting with me today are Meredith Gallagher of Carriage Hill Stables and Patty Downing-Nygaard. Hi, guys. How are you doing today?
Good. Doing great. Thanks. Glad to be here.
Yes, I'm glad that you are here as well. Meredith is a trainer at Carriage Hill Stables and has been competing and training riders throughout the summer. How's your summer been, Meredith?
We had a really good summer. We had horses up north, horses here in Florida. We just got back from the NHS finals. So everything's been rocking and rolling. We've been having a good time.
So where's up north? Where does that mean up north?
We went, originally we left and went to Tryon for a few weeks and then we parted ways and I came back to Florida and the crew went on to Michigan. Sorry, not Cincinnati. We haven't been there in a while. To the Great Lakes horse shows in Michigan.
Wow, that's quite a lot of traveling.
Yeah.
And didn't you end up in Kentucky too?
Yeah, then we came home for a spell and did some ESP horse shows here at home, and then we went up for the week of equitation weekend at NHS Final or National Horse Show.
That's right, in Lexington, Kentucky.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's really good. And Patty, where are you situated, and what's your summer been like?
I live in Burnsville, North Carolina, and my summer's been pretty light. I'm a USEF large art judge and hunters and jumpers and equitation. And I took a really, really, really full spring and a very light summer. My spring became nothing because of the COVID. And so I've just kind of been hanging out and going to a horse show here and there to judge and have the whole month of November at home, which is kind of fun. And do some teaching. I like to come here with Laura and whoever. I love having Meredith here. And well, I've known Meredith since she was a little tiny child, so it's fun to see what she's grown into. And then I do some clinics, and I'm judging. I start judging again in December, and it starts rolling again. So
yeah, well, let's hope so.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I live on the mountain with 2 halflingers, 2 giant potbelly pigs, 21 chickens now, 2 dogs and a cat, and a husband.
Yeah, don't leave him out. You can't leave her
Well,
out.
no, I won't leave him out.
No. Okay, so people who are watching, if it's your first time here, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you coming on to watch. And if it's not your first time here, I really appreciate you joining and taking time out of your day to listen in and seeing what we have to discuss. So my name is Laura Kelland-May. I'm an Equestrian Canada senior judge, hunter, jumper, hack, and equitation, a senior steward, and a competition coach specialist, high performance trained. And I'd like to remind everybody, if you have any comments or questions, please put them in the area wherever you have to put your comments or questions in. Right. So after our show last Saturday, we've got some questions from people. So we're going to answer those today. We've got a couple of position reviews we like to do. And if you have questions, we'll answer those the best we can live. Are you? Uh-oh.
No, allergies. No panic.
All right. Are you ready to go?
Ready.
Yay. Okay. So let's start with a photo. How's that?
Perfect.
So you might see that we're looking down or looking up or wherever your camera is. It's just because we're looking at a camera or the picture that we have. Okay, so this is a photo. And do I have any information? Yes. No, I don't have any information on her. Okay, so she sent the photo in to have a position review done. And if you do have your own photos that you'd like to send in, we'd love to see them. Okay, so Meredith, do you want to take a go at this?
Yeah, for sure. I think I will give her a little more credit because I think the photo is just a little late in the horse's jump. So what I mean is he's more on his way to landing than he is pushing off. It's a nice little small jump that she's practicing over. After that, I think that, whoever taught her basics seems to have really got the ideas correct. Her back is straight. Her heel is maybe a little far back, but trying to be down. Her elbow is nice and bent. All right. So then, because I love Laura always has her little ability to draw there. What I think needs to happen is that space between her shoulders and her hands needs to open up, and her
Like
hands,
here, this right here?
Yep, I think her release is fine, but I think her shoulders need to be more open and her arm needs to be a little longer, so a little more following of her horse.
So her, like, kind of like this?
Yeah, correct. She just
That's
like
perfect, Laura.
a little crunched and a little pinched in at the knee. So
Yeah.
she opens that shoulder, pushes a little harder down in her feet. I think that angle will come up and she'll actually be able to be a little softer on her horse's mouth.
So you're saying that the hip angle here should be more open. Whoops. The hip angle should. So right now, this is the hip angle. Ish.
Correct.
Okay. So you'd like to see it open a bit more like this.
Yep. You got it.
And that will help get the weight down into this part of her leg here.
Yep.
Rather than here.
Yeah.
It's all mechanics, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think it's important when you're teaching kids. Some kids are going to respond better by you telling them to put their heel down and their leg a little forward, and that will then open their bodies. Oppositely, some kids are going to respond quicker if you tell them to open their chest, or I use a lot what I said in the beginning of my little speech about making the distance between your hands and your shoulders larger. So go ahead and push your hand a little away from your chest, lift your chest, make your arm have some length to it, rather than getting real tight and crunched up over the jump. So I think that to me, it's all the same, but that's why I know Patty knows because she does clinics that there are times when you've had a kid and you're telling the same thing over and over, and Patty walks in and says this, and exactly what you want happens. And you're
exactly. So I like that, Meredith. I like the distance between your hand and your chest, because I always say the distance between the chest and the neck. Yeah. It's the same thing. And again, it's just a different way of saying it. And you're exactly right. You can most clinics I do, most of the trainers do a great job, and they go, well, wait a minute, I've been telling them that forever. I said, yeah, but you didn't say it quite like that. So it's the same, the result's the same. However, the words are a little bit different. And so the fun thing with teaching is to find different ways to say things. So that's a whole different way. The distance between her chest and her hand needs to open up. If I had started this, I would have said the distance between the horse's neck and her chest. So it's the same thing, but just a little different. Yeah, and then I think she's riding a bit on the back of her calf, and I'd like her to ride a little more on the inside of her calf, and that will help bring her lower leg forward also. It is all mechanics, like you said, Laura, that if you do this, this will happen, or if you do this, this will happen. And sometimes it's not 5 different things, but one thing will fix all of them.
Yeah.
You just have to play with it.
What's that one thing, though?
Well, I think for me, I would have started at the bottom and gone up. I think if she rolled her leg and her thigh forward so that she's on more towards the front of her calf instead of the back of her calf, would let her put her foot forward. And when she put her foot forward, her distance at the top between her hand and her shoulders would separate a bit. It's the same kind of thing. It's just a little different. She looks to me like she's pinching with her knee a bit and maybe holding on with the back of her calf. She's trying to put her weight in her heel. Her angles are not wrong. They're just a little exaggerated. Too low in the top and too far back with the lower leg, especially over such a little jump.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I have to say the one thing that I think is really good that neither of us have touched on yet is the eyes are up, and that
yes,
exactly. Yeah, I
and
mean,
like you said, her back is flat. Yeah,
yeah. So that's a good thing, and it should help her, fix the little things we've been talking about. One thing that I do a lot of is I put riders on a 20-meter circle at the flat, and you can do it at the walk, the trot, and the canter. But what I have them do is alternate between the posting trot, the sitting trot, and jumping position, and maybe only 10 or 15 steps, so you can get very quality out of each thing. But I think something like that tends to really help when I see a kid pinching a little bit like she is. If they actually practice the motion of going from the sitting trot to jumping position and from jumping position to the sitting trot, and then you mix some posting in so they don't get tired and they can rebalance. But I really find that it's often the transition from one position to the other that really is hard for the kids. It's not so much staying in jumping position, but smoothing out as the horse pushes off the ground to actually holding yourself in jumping position. So I do a lot of that where they alternate between the two or three if you add
yeah,
post.
that's a great exercise to do. And the other one is the posting like every other step and standing up, posting, standing up for 4 steps, sitting back down again, and and as the rider progresses, you can then remove their stirrups to do it, and so you can do the same exercise for all levels. You just make it tougher by taking their stirrups away, taking one stirrup away, you can do all sorts of fun things. And you can make the simplest things hard to do, and it makes them a better rider in the long run. So it's a good thing. Yeah, but Meredith is exactly right. Her back's great, her eyes up. She's looking. Her release is good. Just would be a little softer if she was separated from her the neck to her chest or from her hand to her chest. Yeah, and it looks like a sweet horse, and I like it.
You can kind of see, I think you can see a little better in his expression too. You can kind of see him looking back at her, like maybe her leg's a little far back,
yeah,
it's a little pinched in. I think that's something that we have to constantly remind ourselves is just how sensitive to our position the horses are. I know for my riding, I have to constantly remind myself of that, and I've been doing it, as Patty knows, for as long as I can remember. But it's still, we get caught up in I have to slow down, I have to do this, and not, okay, wait, what does it feel like for a second? And if you can remember that your leg being a little back is going to change how your horse jumps, and you can really focus on your position, then you're going to get better jumps and a better canter, and all of it's going to feel more like riders want it to feel. I have a lot of conversations like that on a weekly basis where, well, it doesn't feel quite right. And I'm like, right, but you have to back up and find the position that's going to make it feel better.
Exactly. I mean, the position we have now has been tweaked and changed and done through some amazing horsemen over the years, and it's a pretty slick position. We've put our body on top of these horses that weren't really supposed to do this, so we have to make sure our weight does not change what they're doing. I mean, these horses are grazing horses that ran in the fields and done, and now we've made them pull, we've made them run barrels, we've made them, and they don't mind it. I think they have great lives, but we have to remember that we've changed their whole balance when we get on their back. So it's our job to keep that doing. And the leg thing is that last time I was on here, we did this quick thing that I saw on the Yellowstone, the TV show, at the cowboy that put his arm around the woman's.
Yes.
Yes. He put his arm around her and squeezed really hard, and she wanted to run away from that, and it made her learn to ride with her leg a little softer. And maybe one of your clients, talked about someone did that with a bandage or a stirrup leather.
Yeah,
because we aren't supposed to be hugging people at this point. Well, so but it's kind of a neat concept to feel what it feels like when someone's compressing your ribs. And some horses are dull to signals, but they're not dull to the leg being in a funny place.
Correct.
Well, when you have your leg in the wrong place, it puts you off balance too. So they're very sensitive to that.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, that's awesome. So, to summarize this rider, to help her, what kind of exercises, Meredith? You mentioned 20-meter circle, practicing getting in and out of your 2-point position. I mean, that is so important because it's a subtle thing, but you need to be able to change your balance quickly.
Yes, and just really like I'll do it even by myself. You know, you don't have to have your trainer there to tell you every time. Obviously, it's good because they can correct the things they see. But if you get in jumping position and keep it on a 20-meter circle, so your horse is kind of, you know, focused on something small, and you can really focus on yourself. You are the only person that can feel whether your heel is actually down or not. Like, I can see it from the ground, but unless you actually take a moment and decide you're aware of what your right heel is doing or your left wrist, you're the one that's going to have to fix it. I can yell at you 5 days a week.
You don't yell, do you, Meredith?
Oh, yes. I'll 10 kids standing outside that would line up to tell you that I can be mean.
Yeah.
So.
The door's going to open and there's going to be a lot of people coming in nodding, right?
Saying yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Meredith wants her riders to be as good as they possibly can. And at Carriage Hill, they have a show group that are very competitive and they want to be better. So it's Meredith's job and the other trainers there to insist that they're better and give them the insisting. I like that word, insisting.
Okay, so as I said before, we got to move on here. So if you have any questions about what we just talked about in that rider, please ask us because we're here to answer your questions. As I mentioned before, last week, as a result of our show last week, we did have some people sending me in questions. So we have this questions. Here is the question. I'm just getting it so we can put it on the thing here. Any tips for a horse who swaps leads in front but can't change their back lead? So
Go, Mare.
This is a common thing, I guess. As a judge, Patty, you probably see it a lot in some shows.
We do.
Maybe, yeah.
The reality of this world of horse showing, and not only in the United States but in Canada also, because when I can travel, I do go up there and judge. Is it pretty much, except for maybe cross rails, your horse has to do a lead change in nowadays.
A clean lead change.
A clean lane change.
And if it doesn't, even if it does a skip or a late behind,
it's just in this day and age, it can't do that. Right. So there are some classes that say trotting changes are fine. And I know the IEA has a lot of things where the trotting changes are fine. And so when those people cross over from IEA into the regular horse shows, they get confused because they're not allowed to do that in even the unrecognized horse shows. Don't you think, Mary? You pretty much have to have a lead change.
Yeah.
You can do lots of things.
I think the thing is, like, when you're judging an unrecognized horse show, you're going to be more considerate to a kid riding well on a horse that looks, you know, like the lead change is awkward. But even at the local horse shows, especially right now because of COVID and the economy and whatnot, there's a lot of nice horses at those horse shows. So you can't let the kid who's riding great and has a cute jumper but misses the lead change beat the three that do all of it and swap their leads. So
exactly,
it's very, like, you can look at it both ways. I used to have a lot of parents that would be upset, you know, well, the lead change is the most important part of the class, but you can also look at it that it is something that the riders should be taught, and the balance should be taught to the horses and the riders, so that it's a basic level movement. So it's okay that it gets marked down as much as it does.
Exactly.
I know in the big equitation now, they've it used to be, it was a 60 if you missed a lead change, no question about it. I know nowadays they're being a little kinder if it's like a step late or,
Like one step late, right?
Yeah.
I mean, to me, when people say, "Oh, he did his lead change," I'm thinking, "No, he did. He changed in front, and then 2 steps later, he changed the back." But sometimes people don't even see that.
Exactly.
So I've seen, actually, I was going to say I've seen it, but I actually can say I had the experience, and Patty was actually one of the judges. But
Uh-oh.
I know I was at one of the ANRC finals, and my horse landed, and I missed the change for like 4 steps, and I kicked it as hard as I possibly could with the outside leg, and it jumped up and finished. But I had a really great trip, and it was very heartbreaking. But I think you guys still gave me like an 82. Like, so it was that good of a trip that you didn't crucify me for the.
Well, and you made the effort to fix it. I think especially in the equitation,
Yeah.
if you make the effort to fix it, it's going to get you a little better score than if you don't even make the effort and you just follow through with the cross canter everywhere. However, we're not answering this girl's question.
Right. So
So
what can we do? What can we do? What was the question again? I got
what
sidetracked
it,
there.
it
Swapped in front, but not the back.
Yeah.
so think about a horse being balanced. A horse is on 4 legs, and so the balance has to be equal on all 4 legs. If you want a horse to change its lead, let's go from left to right, or maybe right to left, right to left. You're going to make sure that your horse is able to lift the inside legs to be able to change, because a canter's a 3-beat gait, and if you're on the correct lead, the 2 inside legs are moving simultaneously. Wow, that's a word. And so when you land from, let's just do it from a jump. Like you land from a jump, and if you bend your horse to the outside and step to the inside, it's almost impossible for it to change to the inside lead because
So
all the
okay.
weight's to the inside. So when you land, you have to go straight, step a little in the outside stirrup, shoulder back, inside bend, and your horse is capable of getting a lead change. Now, someone has to teach it to do that with weight on its back. So somewhere in there, that has to happen. For me, if a rider came to me and it swapped in front, never swapped behind, I'd work really hard on landing straight and halting straight. Then I would land straight and I would slow the canter down and let what is it? Andrea says, slow the front end down so the hind end can catch up. Stepping, that's Andrea Wells's thing.
Yeah.
Stepping in the outside stirrup, again, putting a little weight on the outside. Because think of a four-wheeler. If you lean out, it lifts the inside wheels. So you're lifting your inside wheels a little bit so the horse can swap over. I'd back up, slow down. Now, I'd also check your horse for soundness. I'd check your horse. I know a lot of people, especially right now when the economy is a little tough, sometimes horses need to have shoes on behind to be able to follow through. There's all sorts of little things, but your basic stuff is that 90% of the horses, if you go in a straight line and step out before the corner, they will swap their leads. If they're naturally going to swap, they're going to swap. And so you have to work on that process slowly. If you allow the horse to swap in front and then cross canter, we call it, or a split lead, and canter on, then they think it's okay because they're just compensating for your weight on their back. Do you think, Mary, am I on the right page here?
Yeah, for sure. I was just going to say, essentially, if you continue to allow it and don't address the issues behind it, you've taught them that that's what you want. Change in front, slow down, trot, and get it caught up. So the horses don't really know that's wrong. They think that's what you've been taught them to do. So I think Patty's right. The soundness issue, always have to investigate with your vet, farrier, chiropractor. There's a lot of that. Patty knows probably that I've had a lot of bad lead changers over the years.
Meredith is really good at lead changes, buddy.
They've either come from other places, or they've had sinus issues, or they were young and unbalanced when I started them. So, and we actually have a lot of babies right now at the farm. So we've been developing and doing exercises. I think for the most part, go back to the basics. I knew I wanted Patty to start this conversation because honestly, a lot of lead change work that I do started with her. So I was like, no. No, I mean, I did a lot of changing leads with ponies with Patty. But I think what I do now that I love is I set a figure 8 up so that there's poles that the horses can go through. And and you start at the walk, the trot, whatever. Just like Patty used the halt, I would do the same. Trot to the right, halt, back a step, trot to the left, halt, back a step. Start to do the simple changes the same way. Canter the right lead when you get to your poles, halt. If they lean on you at all, back up a step first, make the outside hind leg be ready, canter off. And it might take days, it might take weeks, it might take hours. I don't know your horse, but until you can get them thinking about that and the organizing their legs to move to the next lead, I think that's where you start. The next.
So I have a question. I have a question. Why do you put the rein back in there?
Kind of like
I mean, I know why you put the rein back in there because that's what I do. But I mean, could you explain what the reason, the rationale for putting a rein back in there?
What I would say is it helps to engage the hind quarter. Would that be along the lines of what you were going to say? I don't know. You might.
Yeah. I think this helps to engage.
I think it balances them on their back end.
That makes them use their hindquarters, and also it helps to strengthen them. And it could be that the horse swaps in front, not behind, because it's a strength thing. So if you work on that and get them to push off with their hindquarters, then and also like what you said, if they lean on you, then you get them off their front end and onto their hindquarters so they can push off more.
Yeah. And so like I do a lot of that, and then I kind of incorporate that into the next exercise. And I had one a few years ago, very long, and same, like he was very weak behind just as a baby, long back, weak. And he actually now changes behind first.
Oh,
but,
you gotta love that.
That's interesting. I don't know that I've ever seen that.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool. I've had a couple ponies that did that.
Yeah.
And but what we did with him is we did the figure 8, and we started with just a little rail to a rail bounce. Like some horses are so naturally balanced that you introduce one rail and you change your weight and they change leads and it's no big deal. He wasn't getting it. So just like we were talking about, I needed to create a little more impulsion, a little more engaging of his hind end. So I set a little rail to rail bounce, probably 10 feet, but you could change it whatever the horse needed, 9 feet. And I would just do that a lot. I'd canter right lead, jump through the bounce, canter right lead, jump through the bounce, and then just set him up a little bit before, like Patty's instructions, weight to the outside, a little inside bend, and let him jump through. And he started to naturally kind of take the other lead. So that helped strengthen him and get him where he understood what I was asking.
I think that's a really good point too, Meredith, is that the horse has to understand what it is that you're asking. If they don't naturally switch their leads when you're kind of go around into the corner, then they have to understand, well, she's asking me to do something, or he's asking me to do something, and I should be switching front and back, not just one or the other.
And Meredith,
or even keep on the wrong lead.
Big point for Meredith. Go back to your basics. Make sure your horse will leg yield. Make sure your horse's hind end will move. If you use your outside leg, you can do a haunches in, a haunches out, a shoulder in, shoulder out. Those are pretty, you can get a horse to do a lead change and not do those particular exercises. But if you're having a problem, those horses need to learn how to move their haunches over. Turn on the haunches, anything, because again, as we've all said, it can very well be a weakness.
Yep.
And think about where your balance is on the horse, because they have to lift the inside legs to be able to get to that lead. And if you're leaning over and looking down and you're bent the wrong way, you're pushing all the weight to the outside, and it's almost physically impossible for them to do a lead change. So make sure your shoulders are back, you're leaning away from their neck, and you step in the outside stirrup. But just a little bit, just make sure that a couple of pounds of your body is to the outside a little bit. I have a friend who does it, and she steps in that outside stirrup so hard. It's a little scary looking. However, she does get the lead. So it's like,
Yeah.
okay.
And again, this, maybe that horse understands that's what it is. So for me, for this person, it sounds like if you're on a course or you want to fix up the course or you want to kind of tune the horse up, if I were doing this, the first thing that I would do as a quick fix, I mean, I think that you have to go back to your basics and all that type of thing. But if you're going over a jump and then you're heading to the corner and the horse only flips the front lead, I would put a pole in the corner, or maybe a pole on a diagonal line, a diagonal half a cross rail, so that when they get to the corner, they flip the front, there's a little jump there that will give them a little bit more air time so they can bring the hindquarters up underneath as well. That's kind of a little trick that I use sometimes.
That's a good trick too. Yeah.
Exactly.
And
I'm glad you said it, because I expected one of us to say that. I'm sure every one of us has used that. And I think it's definitely like, if that fixes your problem, like, awesome, you've done a good job. Your horse was kind of balanced. Maybe you were just missing one little aspect of the lead change. If it doesn't, I will encourage anybody watching this video, do not do it 1,001 times incorrectly. Like, back up again.
Yes, exactly.
Well, they learn it. They learn it.
It's kind of, I would think,
doing the right thing.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like a school horse thing, right? They know the kid's going to look over and look to see if the front leg is moved, and okay, well, I do the front, but it's just too much effort to do the hind legs too. So, yeah.
Yeah. I actually judged with someone a couple of weeks ago in Raleigh, and he said all horses have a lead change. He said, I believe all horses have a lead change. You might not be able to find it, but all horses have a lead change.
I mean, often you see them outside, and they're swapping their leads outside. They're doing their lead changes outside in the paddock. Exactly. Yep. So that's the other thing, is that the rider has to be balanced and not putting the horse off balance, so the horse can do a lead change.
If this whoever sent in this question is willing to do it, maybe send a little video to Laura, and she can give you more of a diagnosis of what's happening specifically with your horse.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
We've thrown a lot of information out here.
So that's true. Yeah, that's really good, because then we can see what it is that's happening.
There you go.
I saw something on YouTube. I should see if I can find it. Is a camel doing tempi changes. So if a camel can do the lead changes, then I think most horses can do lead changes.
Exactly. I love that. I'd like to see that. Send that to me if you can find it.
Okay, I'll see. We'll how about we go on to the next photo that we have? Is that okay? If there's anybody has any questions about that last question we have, please send it in to us. Let's see if I have any information here. No, I don't have any information on this one. No. Okay, so we're going on to another photo that someone sent in. Whoops. There we go. Here's a lovely photo.
How cute.
Isn't she adorable? Send in this lovely photo from the side. I think she's been riding for 4 years. This is a leased horse for her. She doesn't own it, but she's leasing it. And she wants some positions type stuff and how she can win more ribbons at her next horse show.
All right.
Lady.
Okay.
Cute, huh?
She's cute.
Let's have Meredith go first.
Let Meredith go first.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, like, you have to love the smile on her face. I don't know how old she is, but I would say under 12 for sure. So you really, when I'm judging or watching kids, that makes me very happy to start off the day. So good job. You're having a good time. We love that. I think she's turned out pretty well. I think I would, if it looks like she's horse showing. So there's a couple little attire things that I wanted to address. If you're going to have a coat that fits that good and you got your garters and your boots on correctly, find a pair of gloves.
Yep.
Put
I
your
noticed
gloves on.
that too.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think it looks like she's either her jodhpur cuffs have slipped down in her boots, or she actually maybe has breeches on instead of jodhpurs. Jodhpurs are the pants that have a little roll at the bottom of them that go over her boots.
Yeah, cuff.
So,
they have a cuff at the bottom.
Yeah, they have a cuff. Sorry, at the bottom.
It's okay.
But I grew up in doing this as well, so I know sometimes you get a little tall and the cuff gets flattened out, and you wait to buy your next pair.
So your jodhpur should be on the outside of your boots. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah.
And they make a button thing, an elastic to go underneath. They can either clip on or button on.
Yeah, that goes down here, right?
Yeah.
That used to be a fashion thing. They call them stirrup pants, and they had little.
Yeah.
They did, yeah.
And then the last little tweak about the in the ring kind of thing is her reins are actually twisted.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure you straighten your reins before you walk in the ring.
Okay, there's a couple of other things let's go into this. So I think her jacket, I don't think they took the
I see it.
The stitch off the back, and I see this a lot. You know, when you buy a jacket in the store, they have like a stitch that holds the flap to the jacket so they don't get all wrinkled up when they're packed, and that needs to be cut. I think go right to the bottom there, Laura, underneath, right there. Yeah, right. Right, you were there for a second.
This?
Where'd you go? I don't see anything. No, it's right on her jacket. Yeah, right there. There's actually a basting stitch there that has not been cut. And that basting stitch then allows that flap to
I see.
do its thing, so and it will make that jacket fit better.
Yeah.
Yeah, right there. Right there, exactly. Her garters are a little forward. We're being really picky, but her garters are being a little forward. And like Mare said, she needs jodhpur pants. And then really clean boots. I'm a clean boot fanatic.
Okay, so here's one here that maybe you didn't mention, is that helmet isn't fitting properly.
Oh, yeah, it's behind her ears.
This should be here. This is the big thing that I noticed right away. It should be the rider's ear. The harness should be there and there.
Yeah.
Yep, she's got it behind her ears.
Yeah.
Which would be a safety issue. And actually, if I were judging and saw that, I would
I'd stop.
Her leave the ring and fix it.
Yeah.
I know those are great helmets. I use them a lot. They're the Charles Owen kid one. And the straps are adjustable to actually like allow the kids to wear it longer. Like it has a crisscross in the back and it keeps it tight when they first get it, and you can let it out a little as their head grows. So they often do that when the straps aren't adjusted quite properly. So like you just have to actually shorten the strap in the front and let it out a little in the back.
There you go. Perfect.
Yeah. Yes. And correct. And that is a safety thing for me. And like Patty said, if I saw that, I would get the trainer or coach or mom or dad or somebody.
If I were at a local horse show and I saw it before the class started,
yep,
and she came in the flat, I would send her out of the ring,
yeah,
and get them fixed and let her come back, because it is a safety issue. At a recognized an A-rated horse show or any kind of recognized horse show, if the class had started, I would probably ask her to leave the ring, and because I can't fix it and then continue. Because of our rules. However,
I'm hoping that the steward would see it or somebody would see it. I would, if I saw it, I would call down to the in gate and say, get that number, whatever, to change her helmet because it's not fit properly. And that's something that the stewards can do.
Yes. So in Meredith, here I'm jumping around a bunch. So yes, I think the helmet thing's a big thing. I think the twisted reins, that makes me crazy when I'm judging. The bite of the rein should also be on the left side, but that's kind of a minimal thing. And the throat
Wait a
latch
minute.
should
Wait
be
a minute.
tighter.
Wait a minute. Bite of the rein should be on the right side.
Depends on where you are. You drive on the wrong side of the road. So
I thought, yeah, I thought it was on the. I mean, I don't know for certain, but I thought it had something to do with like the soldiers and your sword being on the left leg. So I thought it was on the right too, but I could be.
no, I think you're both right. I think I'm wrong. But the throat latch needs
Could
to
you
be
say that
tighter.
again, Patty?
I was wrong. You guys were right. I do say that. I don't have a problem saying that. Well, maybe, but it's okay.
Okay.
So
Yeah, what are you saying about the throat
however,
latch?
the throat latch needs to be a little tighter because it should be back behind the cheek a little bit.
So it should
And
be
all of that is just appearance.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
and none of us, we haven't said, if this is a flat class, she's wearing a square pad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The pad. It might be
And
a
the
quarter
pad-
horse show. Sometimes the quarter
Well-
horses are allowed to use that.
I was gonna say, like, we don't know. This young lady could be at a farm horse show, you
Yeah.
know, at home,
Yeah.
and I know a lot of times, you know, the school horses have specific tack and specific. So Patty is correct, and for information, like for if you do want to do some horse showing, you do need to know that a shaped saddle pad is necessary. But I, you know, it's correct. But
Right.
I could see how it at a schooling show or a farm show.
Well, exactly. However, this is my theory on exhibiting. Never have the judge ask why.
Yes.
So even if you have your horse and your stuff and the square pads are okay, and you have a judge that's come in looking the part, so when you come in, at least you look the part.
Correct.
So hence goes back to the basting stitch in the jacket, the gloves, the jodhpurs instead of breeches, and I think that's what that is. She has on a pair of breeches, which is fine. And but we need to have them on the outside. Even breeches you can put on the outside with a strap if that's what you have. And those straps cost, if you can buy them on Amazon for next to nothing with the clip. Because I bought some for the grandchild once. And I love the smiles. I mean, she's having a great time. That's the most coolest part about this whole picture is that this kid's happy. She's
Well, and
having.
I think, you know, we've addressed her turnout entirely, and I think that she now knows at her next tour show. I don't think she'll have any excuses. But I do think, like, she, you know, for a position review, it looks like the kind of the opposite of our little girl earlier, or older girl earlier. She looks a little behind the vertical to me, or like very much straight on it at the top of her posting position. She's posting and she's at the top. So I'd like to see her hip angle close just a little bit, which would actually put a little bend in her elbow, and it might bring her foot back a little bit. Or you can, like Patty started at the bottom of the other one, so bring your foot back a little bit, keep your heel down, that bends your knee, that helps you bring your hip angle a little more closed. So,
and it could be the actual moment the photo was taken too.
Yeah.
You know, it
could be. However, remember, posting is not up and down. It is forward and down.
Yeah. So here's my thing
Forward
with
and down.
this is that, do that again, Meredith. What are you doing?
She's posting. She's posting.
Okay, so here's what I say, when particularly when you're working with children, is that if I took this horse away from underneath this rider, what would happen to this rider? Would she land in
fall
balance on
backwards.
the ground? Would she tip forward, or would she fall backward?
She'd fall backwards,
Totally.
wouldn't she? Yeah.
I totally.
Yeah.
And there's the stirrup leather there, right?
Yeah, it needs to
So
come
we'd
back
like,
just a little
we'd
bit.
like to have the stirrup leather here.
It's not
So-
much.
No.
Yeah, just a little bit.
And
2
the
inches.
The one thing I noticed right off the bat, because obviously, like when you teach kids, you know, you use a range of from ponies to small horses, and we've all had really great small horses in our lesson program. This one looks to me like a small horse. Like I'd say it's, you know, in the 15 to 16 hands variety. And when you have a short leg on a horse with a little bigger horse with a round barrel, that naturally pushes the kid's legs forward. So it becomes a much more conscious correction that the kid has to make to keep kind of bringing your leg back, because you meet that round part of the horse's belly better than, or more so than when you are a little taller on the horse. We could go into size appropriate or not, but from the kind look in this horse's eye and the kid with the smile on her face, I'm sure it's a perfectly suitable horse for what she's learning, at least judging by the photo. But size suitability, she's a little short, so she does have to think about those angles a little bit more, keeping the bend in her knee and keeping her hip angle closed, because when you're smaller on a big horse, it tends to put you back a little bit.
Very good. It's like perfect.
Excellent description. I really like that. And so if you were teaching a child like this, rather than saying angles, how would you describe it to this particular person, let's say?
What I would do is I would actually put my hand on her heel, on the heel of her boot, and just draw her foot back a little bit. And then it's about feeling. And for me, when I teach, I haven't gotten to teach littles too much in the last few years since I went to work at Carriage Hill. But I watch them a lot, as Trisha and a lot of others teach over in the other ring. And that to me is, you have to get them to feel it. So not that we have to, do everything for them, but that okay, I'm going to put your foot here and now post. So you do that way, or I want you to hold the martingale strap and post, or, it's very much putting them in the correct position or talking them through it, and then making sure they can do it enough times to feel what is correct.
Exactly right. And the neck strap, we use Laura and Randy, when she's on, she uses the neck strap a lot. And to be able to keep your hands where they are, to be able to keep your hands there, you're going to have to close your hip angle a little bit, and it makes it happen. And then you get them to learn the correct position. So, I mean, this kid is so close to being right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really close.
Yeah.
And
so now that you've identified that, then what exercises, Patty, let's have you go first since you're talking. What exercises would you get this person to do? And then Meredith.
I think the same thing.
Exercise.
Okay, I like the neck strap. I would shorten your reins a little bit and put your hands forward on the neck strap.
2-point in the neck strap.
Well, it's not even 2-point at that point. It's just that she just closes where you have it there. If she just went forward 2 inches,
yep,
with her hands, it would close her body, and 2 inches back with her foot, and it would close her body. It's so minimal that either whoever's teaching her hasn't really quite seen how minimal it is, or maybe she was way too forward before and leg was too far back. I mean, maybe she's corrected. There's so many things, but I would do the neck strap, and I would do the 2-point for 4 steps, sit trot for 4 steps, post for 4 steps or 5 or 10, however it is, on the circle, as Meredith has said, and using that strap until you get used to your body being where it is. Yeah, I mean, it's not, I mean, maybe not even that much, Laura. Maybe it's just I don't even think it's that much. I think it's like that much. And I know that seems silly, but it does make the difference between being correct for hunt seat or too upright and behind the motion.
Well, yeah, and I would say it's definitely, it's a freeze frame of where she is in her pose. So my fear would be, if we were watching a video, she gets that upright, or this way, she gets that way, and then as she's gonna sit, it's gonna get a little worse, and she's gonna end up back in the back seat, and then having to push herself all the way back up to the front. That's what keeping the hip angle closed, I feel like, does for you. Keep your your feet under your bones, not your hooves. Your feet.
Keep your hoof under.
Keep your hoof under your shoulder, yeah.
Yeah, and then that as Patty to say, you rise a little forward and then you sit, but you don't sit back. You sit down. And I think a lot of people, they go up, forward, back, down, up, forward. It becomes this motion instead of what I was doing earlier, which was just up.
Well, and you kind of sit, and when you post, you sit between your seat bones and your pelvis.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
this rider's
right.
got to stay over top of her leg, which she really isn't doing now.
No.
So at her age, I would just say it's a steady diet of jumping position for a little while too. Just get her legs a little stronger and get her where she's comfortable being closed over with her hip angle closed, and it'll come together really fast. I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
She's having too much fun for it not to come together really fast. I mean,
Yeah,
people that
excellent.
enjoy it are willing to work at it. Exactly.
So excellent. And if you have any questions about this photo and some of the exercises that we shared, please give us a comment. We'd like to hear what you have to say about those exercises. So 2 point steady. I like what Meredith said, steady diet of 2 point.
Yep. It's a good one.
These types of exercises, on the lunge line or that type of thing.
Making you independent. We balance
seat and leg. Yeah.
When you first start, everyone wants to jump immediately. Yeah. And so, and as instructors, we tend to kind of give them a little taste of things. But remember that they need to be independent of their hands and their arms because they have to balance. They have to balance on their body and their legs and their hip. And I love to watch someone come in the ring, in the hunter ring, and there's just a softness to the hands and to the bit because they're not balancing on the horse's mouth. And I love that.
Okay, so we got another question here. We're getting
the hay bales.
Time here. Yes, so this is Sophie, and Sophie said she was at a horse show and she was going around jump number 5, and her horse would not go over the jump. The jump had hay bales under it, but she was jumping flower boxes and bushes. Do you have any tips on how to get your horse to stop refusing?
Patty's saying pick me, I think.
Okay, Patty.
Pick me.
Okay, Patty,
So,
we got this and a couple other questions. So
the hay bales. If your horse jumps everything but hay bales, buy some hay bales. Shake out some hay on the bottom underneath the jump. It depends on how sophisticated your group is, but buy some hay bales and practice it at home.
That's what I said too when Laura sent me the question, is that the horse's eyesight is not like ours, and they view things very differently. So what we think looks very similar as, something that shouldn't affect them may very well affect them. The depth and width of the hay bale is different than a flower box. It doesn't have a bright color. It blends in maybe a little more to whatever color footing you have. There's a lot of things, like if your horse is jumping everything else and it's spooked at the hay bales, like Patty said, buy some hay bales, introduce it to that, give it a pat on the neck, and move on.
There you go.
If there's bigger issues with stopping, I'm sure there's a lot of exercise we could talk about with that. But I think it's just important to remember, I said to Laura, horses stop for 3 reasons. They're either afraid, they're in pain, or it's rider error. So
and the other thing too is, very quickly, if you have a trainer that if you can't when you get the hay bales at home, get your trainer or a stronger rider to get the horse over the top of the hay bales. If they jump everything else, they'll jump the hay bales. It just surprised them. And maybe it surprised you. Sometimes if it surprised you, you lean forward and let go, and then it went, oh, holy moly, there's something to be afraid of here. We have to tell them in our ride that all is good.
So the 3 things, Meredith: pain.
What did I say? They're either afraid, in pain, or it's rider error. And unfortunately, all 3 of those things come into play together if we're not careful. So just be cautious, and if you're having trouble with a stopper, find a trainer to help you. Investigate with your vet or your farrier, and really evaluate: are you the cause? Am I getting ahead? Am I changing the rhythm at the last minute? We really have to take that on ourselves first and build back the other way to help with the stopping issue.
Yeah, it could be, as you say, rider issue, rider error, which usually it is. It's because they're not riding properly. Let the horse just kind of run by because the horse they're not riding through the aids properly.
Yeah, I mean, how many times have we seen a horse going very well with a professional? It gets sold to a junior. It goes really well for a little while. And then you start having an issue. And usually what it is the horse is very used to a certain balance, a certain rhythm, a certain ride. And it's now being placed too long, too short, too deep. It's getting maybe hit in the teeth. And all of these things affect the horse's mental state and also its physical state. So if you ask your horse to leave too long with you up on its ears 20 times, or you pop, chip, and hit it in the teeth and, crank its neck sideways, you're then causing physical issues that then the horse associates with the jump. So if I don't jump the jump, I don't have any of those physical problems. So we can talk about riding all day, but go back and work on yourself, work on your basics, work on being better with your animals.
And there are some horses that will jump that long distance and get brain flossed every time, and it'll keep doing it. I always call those abused spouses.
Yeah.
Because they just keep going and keep going and keep going. And then you have some that you just tip your body a half an inch and it says,
Yep.
I'm not jumping that.
Yeah.
So kind of pay attention to that, because it's true. They're all different personalities and they don't all work the same.
Yep.
Okay, so let's just get to it. Thank you so much for that question, by the way, Sophie. It was a great question. Love that. Okay, so another question. She asks, how do you know if your horse is fancy or not?
It's all in the eyes of the beholder, isn't it?
That's what I think. That's what I told her when I emailed her back and said, yeah, this is what I think is fancy, may not be what you think is fancy. So Meredith, what do you think?
I think for me, you can go look at a classic conformation book, or I know there's a lot of videos out there that describe, like, for example, if we're talking about fancy horses, we're usually talking about hunters in our neck of the woods, whether it moves good, it's attractive, it jumps good. And but then there's also, like Patty said, in the eye of the beholder, but there's a quality to them. Not all of those fancy horses all have dish noses, all move 110%. I have one in the barn that I think is one of the fanciest horses we have. He doesn't move good. But to me, it walks into the ring with ring presence, and that brings its fanciness up. So I would say, in general, you have to have correct conformation, a smaller, typier head, they would say, attractive. And then there's some sort of wow factor added to it.
I like where you say ring presence. That is so huge. And I've never thought of it that way, but when you say the wow factor, that's what it is. I think is the
wow factor. And that works on the rider too. I mean, it's all, when you walk into that ring, if you have the ring presence, your physical attire and how your position is and the way your horse looks when they walk in the ring, it lets us as a judge go, okay, I'm gonna this one might be really good. And sometimes they disappoint you. However, that beginning is really good. The beginning is what we start with a high score in our mind, even if it's subconsciously, and then you either keep the high score up there, or all of a sudden it's like, oh well, they look pretty, but
I know we're
bright.
out of time, but I know Patty might know the answer to this question. When I talked to Laura the other day, I said there was a video years ago that I feel like maybe Rodney Jenkins did, and it was like how to pick a hunter, or how to.
There's a couple of those out now that some of those guys have done, and it does do that.
And it was kind of, it must have come out before I was born or when I was a very young kid, because it was a while ago, and I'm not going to say it's exactly how we would judge a hunter today. But what he did I thought was very interesting is he took like one he thought was above average quality, a medium one, and then maybe one that was a nice horse but didn't have the fancy or the wow factor that the others did. And he took apart their conformation and showed you why and how and their movement.
I think you're right, Mary. I think it's Rodney. I think Rodney did that years and years ago.
Yeah.
To do. And to remember too, if you have a horse that's just a good horse and it swaps its leads and it goes to the jumps and it does the numbers and it does that stuff, it can beat the fancy one that is stupid in the corners and does stuff. So you don't have to always have the fanciest. Sometimes the doer works. And I think we found the camel dressage.
I will take a do any day of the week, Patty. Just
exactly. Oh,
I'll
exactly.
day.
Well, sometimes those fancy ones need someone like you on them because they're hard to ride.
Right.
They're fancy because they're a little worried and they're a little nervous and they're a little this and they're a little that. And they're not always good guys. The one that does all of them, wow.
Patty asked a question. I think we're going to have to wait till next week, Patty, or if you can give like a quick fix, Meredith, new adult rider to feel, look, and less mechanical. Keep riding, Patty. That just comes with a lot of miles in the tack.
A lot of practice.
Yeah, a lot of practice, and I think just very simple exercises like on the flat, walk without your stirrups, pick your stirrups up, drop them, sitting trot, like just learning how the horse feels underneath you. To me, that's your start, getting comfortable with the movements and how it feels.
And Laura, I want you to have Meredith back, and I want her to do the whole hour on the sitting trot.
Yeah, so yes, I will for sure. Thank you so much, Meredith. I want to say something to Patty Willie, though. Patty, advice for a new rider: if you have a calm, quiet horse and you have some friends, go out for a hack, just even a walking hack where you get to learn exactly what Meredith said, how the horse feels, going up and down little inclines, having to deal with different things of holding your reins so you can brush a tree branch back, those types of things. You really develop your feel for the horse and how to move in the saddle and to trust your horse a little bit too.
Absolutely.
But
and keep working at it.
We'd love to have you back. And same with you, Patty. And as you said, I found the camel dressage.
All right.
And you can see this camel doing a lead change. If I can get it to work. There's right lead. Clean lead change to the left.
Wow. I'm more impressed with the person sitting on top of the camel. I love it.
That's cute.
That's very cool.
Paced. So is he going to do it back the other way? There he goes.
Doing a serpentine. Nice. Camel's 4-beat, Mare.
No.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
So.
I love that.
Oh, they do pace.
Look at that little 2-beat trot. Oh, I love it.
Pacing. Yeah. So don't tell us your horse won't do a lead change.
Exactly.
If we can get this camel who's pacing to do a proper lead change, a clean lead change, then yeah. Oh, there he goes.
Look how cute that is. Oh my goodness. Bob and Bill won't do that, Meredith. I'll tell you right now.
Do you ever see a camel do?
No, I've never seen this before. Camel dressage.
Yeah.
No. Okay, guys, I have to go.
Okay, well, thank you. There, Lindy says, thank you, Lindy. Love to see an old
Meredith is the best at the sitting trot.
Well, thank you so much, everybody. Would love to see you again next week, and we will get Meredith back. If you have any questions, please put it in the comments. We'd love to hear and see you. Thanks very much, guys. Now go
Bye, guys.